Yeah. All right then. Thank you very much, everyone, for getting up nice and early. I know loads of you are probably still in bed normally at 9 o'clock. Now we're in lockdown times. So yeah, thanks very much for coming along. You'll all be you'll all be glad to know that this is the last workshop.
Last one. Yeah.
Last workshop. So we thought we'd do it a little bit different. Obviously, you're probably all used to having Zoom sessions and stuff like that with your coaches, and be the first time you haven't done a Zoom workout. You've actually just used it as a workshop. So don't worry, we won't be asking you to do any exercise or any yoga. So Tanya, just mute your mic there for us, mate. Yeah. So yeah, welcome along to Workshop 8. And Workshop 8, if I just move my screen up there, Workshop 8 is understanding physical capabilities to achieve excellence in sport. Now, this was meant to be a face-to-face workshop. So the idea was we were going to have you all in Loughborough or Dudley or somewhere like that, and we were going to do quite a bit of testing, get some people involved. So you'll be glad to know that you haven't actually physically got to do any testing. What we're going to do is we're just going to talk around physical capabilities, achieving excellence, and it's basically like achieving excellence and how they tie in. So what we're going to do slightly differently as well. Oh, it's really annoying the way it keeps popping up with people. What we're going to do, we're sort of going to have general discussions and chats, as you can see. Well, you might be able to see, you might not be able to see. Every assessor is on this today, apart from Rob, who's not well today. But he hasn't got corona. He's just not well. So yeah, Rob won't be in it. But other than that, you've got every assessor involved. And we're going to sort of do it all together for us. It'd be nice for you to see our tired faces one last time before we finish, given that we might not be able to get out and see you. So yeah, we'll crack on with the first little bit. Obviously, everyone should have the workbook there. We'll give you a little bit. We'll give you a bit of time to go and fill this in now as we're working through it. So yeah, first slide, please, Paula. Okay, so the first section is going to be me and Helen, and we're basically going to talk about the components of fitness. And basically, components of fitness, they're the fundamentals that allow you to perform your chosen sport, but you're all swimmers on here. So to be able to swim at the highest level. Yeah. So the more efficient you are at these components, the greater the chance of success. So the better you are at each individual component together, the more chance of success you have. They're very different. Each one's very... Oh, I'll just wait rooms in my head then. They're all very different. So each component, as you can see there, we'll talk through them in a little bit more detail. But they are very different, both from health related and skill related. And yeah, so like we're saying, they are different. They are really different. Oh, this is doing my head in. Yeah, so like I say, they're really different. Not only within all different sports. So each different sport will have a different characteristic of what you need to be good at, of where your strengths need to lie, and where you can not get away with weaknesses, but where weaknesses can be hidden. But in terms of swimming, it's equally different between each discipline, really. Each stroke, each distance, they're all going to be different. So, like I say, myself and Helen, we're going to talk through them, really. And like I say, it's split up into health-related components, and you're talking about skill-related components. So if we flick on to the next slide, Helen, Paula, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the health-related components and what it means. And then Helen is going to talk about skill-related.
Next slide, did you say? Sorry.
Please, yes. Okay, so health-related components. So the reason these are called health-related components is taking it away from being an athlete for a moment. We're talking about just general health. Yeah. So we're talking about just the general public and their ability to do stuff, sort of day-to-day activities, walking the shop, just basically going about their general day-to-day lives comfortably, so to speak, and with a minimal of fuss, really. So they're split into 5. So we've got body composition, cardiovascular fitness, flexibility, muscular endurance, and strength. And like I say, these all sort of tie in to the health elements of it, and the fact that, for example, your nans may have a different characteristics of health-related fitness. For them, it might be just to be able to get up, walk the shops, walk up the stairs. For me, it might be to just be able to get out and just do little bits of runs. Can we go back on a slide, please? Might be going and doing little bits of runs. It might be, just generally being active. But for you, it's completely different. For you, it's more than a hobby. It's your, well, hopefully could be your job in the not too distant future once you've finished school and stuff like that. Someone saying something then, sorry. Is it Luke? Is it Luke keeping me awake again? Okay, so yeah, it's split up into the 5 things there. Body composition. Okay, so the key thing I want to talk about in terms of body composition is it's not weight. Yeah. So body composition, we need to get away from just scales. Body composition is about basically the amount of fat, the amount of lean muscle, your bone density and stuff like that. So they're all the important things when it comes to talk about body composition. And I mean, Helen will be able to talk a bit more about this than me in the next, when she comes on to talk about skill related. But, again, it's different within swimming. So sprinters and distance swimmers are going to have completely different body compositions. You can see it just from being in training, the amount of different body shapes and sizes you've got, and each one's going to be optimal for each specific stroke, for the distance and stuff like that. Okay, cardiovascular fitness. So the ability of the heart and lungs to transport blood and oxygen, as a basic level. So for you, then you're talking more about sort of lactate thresholds, your tolerance to exercise, and your body's ability to get rid of waste product faster than it's produced. Okay, and again, that's going to differ for your strokes and stuff like that. Flexibility, again, we're talking about health related stuff. One of the main things that sort of goes in terms of age or can be a precursor to injury is flexibility. I know, maybe, I know a few of you, I've certainly from the ones I've been speaking to, and I've been doing it myself, to be honest. A lot of you have been doing yoga sort of in the lockdown and stuff like that. And I found it really beneficial. I mean, I'm absolutely disgraceful at it. But it is, it's obviously helping. It's helping me, and it's hopefully help you. But range of movements, again, health related is important. But you need to think about, as an elite level athlete, range of movements. We're talking range of movements at a joints. We'll come on and talk about testing in a minute. But the amount of pre-screening and stuff like that you do. Think about when you were all on camp with us, the stuff that Lisa and Georgia and Dan and stuff were making you do pre-pool, and we were doing the testing and the range of movements and stuff like that. Muscular endurance, the ability to use voluntary muscles repeatedly without tiring. So obviously that's the ability to go long, you're training for 2 hours, maybe 3, maybe having a gym session after it. So, we're talking about muscular endurance there. It's the ability to keep going and going and going. And again, it ties back with the fitness in terms of muscles not fatiguing and being able to get rid of the waste product. And then strength, the amount of force a muscle can exert against resistance. So you all do that. So if you all think, if you start off the block, there's an initial force, you've got the wall and stuff like that. But again, if we're talking health related, it can just be about the ability to move stuff up, pick stuff up and stuff like that. So the health related, when it's been broken into this category, like I say, it's very general. It's very sort of just about general well-being and stuff like that. What you need to do. There's examples on the side there. I'm not going to go through the examples because I want you to put it in. And we purposely haven't done swimming examples, but we want you to be able to go through it and think how they relate to you, how they relate to your stroke, how they relate to your distance, and all that range of things, really. So if we flick over the next slide, please, and Helen is going to talk about skill-related fitness.
Okay, guys, good morning. I'm glad you could all join us. This is probably a bit of a lay-in compared to what you're used to. So following on from what Mick was talking about, from the physical side of fitness components, to look at the skill-related side is sort of your ability for your, what we call your neuromuscular system. So your brain and your muscles working in relation to each other to sort of perfect the finer movements as such. So we start with agility, which is your ability to change position. So moving your body quickly, but controlling the movement at the same time. So you've got there examples of badminton player, that type of movement. You've also got tennis, squash, those sort of things, but obviously you need to think and consider how, important it is in swimming and where you use agility yourself. Moving on to the balance, it's the ability to maintain your body center. You've got your description there, and it's holding that center of mass above your base of support. So if you're a gymnast, doing a handstand would be a really good example of something that's a static balance. So really you've got your static type of balance, which would be your gymnast or your sprinter holding the perfect start position. But you've also got something we call dynamic balance, which is your movement side of balance, which obviously, again, you think of the examples within swimming. But just as examples outside of swimming, you've got things like gymnasts performing moves on a beam. So the balance is still involved, but it's a moving action rather than a static movement. And if you make that dynamic balance even more complex, you look at things like skateboarding, surfing, because you've then got the addition of the water. So it's not just your skill to balance on the board, it's your skill to balance on the board with the action of the water, which is more unpredictable. So lots of things sort of come into play when we're looking at balance. Okay, from coordination, the ability to move two or more body parts together or at the same time. So in swimming, that's, a really prominent sort of sport for that. So you've got your example there of trampolinist moving arms and legs at the same time. You can consider different aspects of your stroke, different strokes which you do that involve coordination. Thinking of other examples, it's things where you're sort of multifunctioning as such. So if you were playing hockey, not only are you considering how you're running, how you're holding the stick, how you're maneuvering the stick, how you're keeping control of the ball and any unlevel ground on the pitch, things like that. So lots of different coordinating movements and, your brain going overtime to control your nerves to make those movements. Okay. And when we look at power, this is what sort of does link in a little bit with your body composition. It's the ability to perform, strength performances quickly, but also about exerting, maximum muscular contractions, but with explosive bursts of movement, basically. So you can, again, you think of examples within your sport. We got there the example of a javelin thrower, applying the force against the javelin, pulling it through the air and releasing. And what power is basically is a combination of speed and strength combined. So if you've got a maximum contraction of muscle going on, it's doing that, having that explosive action at speed, which is what makes it power. So again, you consider how that relates to your swimming generally. If you look at the different body compositions, body shapes of various swimmers, you compare somebody who is maybe a sprinter. Generally speaking, they have a lot of power and maybe less aerobic endurance. They don't want to swim a 1500. They are a power athlete. They're built for power. They're generally a little bit more muscular, slightly different shape. Whereas if you are a distance athlete, you tend to be slightly less powerful, but you have that aerobic endurance and slightly leaner muscles. So your body composition comes into play a lot in swimming. You may have a very slightly higher body fat percentage if you're a distance swimmer, helps with buoyancy and so on. So just consider power a little bit more outside the box when you sort of think of what power actually is and how it relates to your sport of swimming. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So reaction time, it's how long you take to respond to a stimulus. So if you hear the starter's gun, it's your recognition of hearing it, your brain receiving the message that you've heard it, and how quickly your brain responds with the action to leave the block. Okay, so it's all about those skill pathways that you build up. And by practicing them, obviously the speed of those nerve reactions becomes that much quicker. You know, some you have control of, some you don't. If you dropped a brick on your toe, it would be a bit of a reflex for you to pull your toe away, rather than this is a trained response to an actual stimulus. Okay, and you've got an example there, a boxer receiving a punch. You know, they see a punch coming, they're going to try and move to avoid it. All right, and finally we've got speed, the ability to put body parts into motion quickly. So basically how quickly you move your limbs. And as we know in swimming, it's not just, you watch certain people swim, it's not just about how quickly you move your arms and legs. Okay, it's moving them quickly, but doing it with effect. Okay, so moving them very quickly, but obviously making sure you've got hold of the water and making the stroke effective as well as fast and long. Okay, so there's that combination you need to consider. The example there, you've got a tennis player moving from the baseline, sort of having to move quickly to reach a shot, or moving back towards the back of the court to get a long shot or drop shot in, you know, and return it. So there's lots of different aspects. We've given you lots of examples, but obviously you need to be able to relate those from those definitions and the additional information that we've given you. You need to relate those to your swimming, and, you know, just think broadly about them. Don't go with just the basics. Think around where you specifically use it. You know, what distance do you swim? Are you a power athlete, an endurance athlete, somewhere in the middle that's a bit of very fast but sort of slightly longer distance? So look at what you do and relate these fitness components to you specifically.
Okay, so that ties us into your first question in the workbook there now. Okay, you've been given 11 different examples of health-related and skill-related fitness. Tell you, Paula, could we go back to slide 1, please, which has got the two diagrams on?
I'm trying. Sorry, there you go. Is that the one or the one before?
No, the one before, please. Yeah, okay, so what I want you to do now, there's the 11 different components of fitness. What I want you to do is, in question 1, you've obviously got 5 boxes. What I want you to do is I want you to fill it in, but I want you to rank them in order of which one you feel is the most important to you. So you can number them at the side, fill in all 5, give the examples, and you need to say, yeah, like literally what, in terms of you as very specific to you, what's the most important. It might be what's the most important to your race, or it might be what's the most important for you that you feel you need to develop. But I want you to rank them in some sort of order of what's the most important. So I'll give you, what do you reckon, Darren? 6 minutes?
Yeah,
so half past?
Yeah, 5, 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Remember, guys, we are recording this session as well. So when it comes to the description, if you feel like you're not quite getting enough information there, we will send the recording of the session out this afternoon, so you can go back and add a little bit of detail. So just focus on getting the key points down now, and that sort of next 5 or 6 minutes. You can always add to it a bit later if you need to.
Okay, last minute or so on this question. And then we'll move on. Tell you what, we haven't got the raise your hand feature, have we?
Yeah, you have
Have we?
the thumbs up. If you go into emotions, I think it is.
Ah, will it? Leave it for now. Sorry. Yes.
There you go. There's still a few people that are coming in.
Yeah, no. Okay. That's 5 minutes anyway. So what we'll do is we'll move on. So Paula, if you could just go to the testing screen, please. It's the one after the one we've just been on. So 3 slides on it'll be.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll stop share because my computer's playing up. Darren, I'm going to stop share and hand over to you if that's okay. You okay there, Darren? Or do you want me to get it back up again? You're on mute. Oh, he's on.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just working it out.
Thank you.
Nearly said too many inappropriate things then when we're on a Zoom call. All right, so we've talked about the physical components of. Oh, go back, sorry, mate. We've talked about the physical components of fitness and how they related. Well, you've talked about how they related to your swimming, to you personally. One of the massive things for me, certainly coming from my background and sort of exercise and fitness and stuff like that, is testing. Testing is so important in terms of just being able to know where you're at. So as an athlete, you should always be looking to improve. No matter if you're an Olympic gold medalist, a world champion, you're always wanting to improve. You should always be looking to improve. And the only really way you can sort of do this, along with analysis, is by testing. So just find out where your strengths and weaknesses lie, and sort of building on them. So, and like I say, that's done by testing. The only way you'll find out then the physical imbalances, the weaknesses, is by the testing. So we can see there we've pretty much got nearly got. I think we've got all of them there, haven't we? And we've got a test. We've got a test for all of them. We're not going to go through each one, but you'll probably recognise a few of them. So in terms of body composition, before, like we were saying, it's not about just standing on a scales. It's about your composition. We've got skin fold measurements there. That's. Does anyone do skin fold measurements? We've got a chat box there. Does anyone do skin folds at the start of the season? Did they do it throughout the season? Or has anyone used anything different in terms of a DEXA scanner, in terms of a bod pod, anything like that? Just stick it in the chat box if you do it, and what are you using? While people are getting ready to type, I'll just talk a little bit about, for me, the gold standard, the best one for body composition would be a DEXA scanner. Probably only really used one of them if you're linked with a university or, well, yeah, that's it really, because it's really expensive per scan, never mind to own a piece of equipment. But the DEXA scanner, if you ever get the opportunity to have one, they're unbelievable. They give you your bone density, your lean muscle density, your fat percentage, your amount of water in your body and stuff like that. They're really good. I know it's used a lot in like boxing and weight cutting sports where they'll look at like where they can lose the weight and safest ways to lose weight and stuff like that. But skin fold measurements, is the most basic one. You can tend to have. You just do your main foresight, which is your foresight testing, which is your yeah. Oh, do you want to? Have you just put that in there, Helen?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that then?
It's just bearing in mind it's a few years ago. At the time, skin fold calipers were seen as a really accurate way of measuring.
Yeah.
Before we had as much technology, and even nowadays, people do still use them, and it just certain sort of 6 positions over the body, and it just measures the skin and underlying fat thickness basically in millimeters, and it just gives you an overall body composition. And even now with all the high-tech stuff it's still seen as reasonably accurate. You have to forgive my computer, my P doesn't work, hence the calliers, not calipers.
Yeah, so
broken.
Yeah, so obviously that's a really good one. It's dead easy. It's non-invasive, and it can just be done poolside and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's an idea. When you can even just do the foresight, which is bicep, tricep, subscap, and iliac crest.
Can do it, or swimmers can do it with each other as well. If it's the female thing, male thing, obviously it's a gender issue to an extent sometimes. So.
You've got cardiovascular fitness there. Oh God, who's this now? You've got cardiovascular fitness. Obviously, you'll all do your own little tests that you'll have, swimming specific, stroke specific, sort of distance specific cardiovascular tests that you'll do at the start of the season, maybe timed, anything like that. You might be able to do some sort of power or speed based stuff in dry land, where you're able to do 1 rep maxes. You're able to do, you might have sort of like a force plate, anything like that. If you've got access to decent level S&C equipment. And you've also got a lot of flexibility stuff. And again, we'll come on and talk about the slide in a minute, but yeah, so like I say, testing will tend to be done a lot throughout the start of the season. You'll get in and then you'll get tested loads at the start, give you your baseline. It's really important for me then to keep testing. Testing shouldn't just be a thing at the start. Testing should be an ongoing thing. Yeah, it should be throughout the season, maybe at the end of every cycle, potentially. I know a lot of athletes can tend to do it every 6 weeks. Okay, so when you're doing that, there's loads of different reasons. What it can do is it'll chart your progress for a start. So what you want to be able to do is be able to see that what you're doing, the work you're putting in essentially is working. Yeah, okay, so my flexibility is getting better, my body composition is getting to a more optimal range, and you know you're getting better times in sort of speed-based tests, or you 1 rep maxes come up. So you're charting the progress so you know what's working. You can also then see if it's not working. Even more importantly, to be honest, is you can see if it's not working. So by being able to see if it's not working, you can make them changes early enough and basically flip back and try something new. The other thing you can do is prevent a plateau. So what you don't want to be doing is doing the same stuff all the time, because you'll only increase for a certain amount of time and then you'll plateau. By finding that plateau through testing, you'll be able to change stuff up again. Little tweaks here and there, little adaptations to prevent the plateau continuing and to go back on that upward curve. Yeah. Helen, do you want to add anything more about the testing involved there? You've got to put your mic on, Helen.
Turned it off so you didn't hear me crunching. Yeah, no, I think you pretty much covered it. You know, there's various ways of doing the equivalent in a pool, isn't there? And these guys are going to know those things. I would stress the fact that flexibility on my tours around various leisure centres and with various swimmers, that does seem to be a bit of an issue. So you know, and how much that could improve swimming and stroke if it was done.
Bearing that in mind, Darren, can you flick through to not the next slide, the slide after, please? Okay, it's really hard to see here, but it's basically about sort of your pre-screening and testing. And you know, obviously, as we can see, we're not going to go into too much detail, but you can see as we're going along, we've got your different ranges of movements, and then you basically rag rated red, amber, green. Yeah. So that, again, that's showing our progression of how we're going to chart your progress. So, you know, if you come back and you're all in the reds for everything, because you've certainly after lockdown, you know, you might have been sat down a lot just on your computer. So your hip flexors have gone really tight. You might have been cramped over a computer. Your chest might have gone tight, all that sort of stuff. So you'll be testing it. And then what you'll want to see is the reds turn into greens throughout the course of the season, but ideally throughout the course of pre-season. I know this was originally Rob was going to bring Becky in here just to talk about a bit of the testing that Becky will have gone through when European juniors and stuff like that. Becky through all the Swim England programs, weren't you? If she's there.
Yeah, so we used to use testing, as you said, like start the season and stuff. So we do like the skin fold, and we do so like your sit and reach, testing our flexibility, so how that had changed over the summer. And we'd have like test sets that we do in the pool as well. So one we used to do was the 25, 50, 75, 50, 25. Max on number one. It was like 5 minutes rest after each one and just testing our speed. And we'd also have like a best average set where we'd do 15 200 best average off 3 minutes. And then we'd record all this in our logbook. So we'd then be able to sit with our coach at the end of a week and go through it and kind of record over a season how things changed.
So for you, Beck, what was their expectation in you in taking part of these tests? So like when you were involved in it, what was their expectation for you to take part in it? So
It was
as the swimmer.
to like do our best every time, but to kind of be able to measure improvements that we've made and kind of see what was happening in terms of training and competition. Were they working for us at that point in the season? So it'd be to then measure and see if we needed to change anything, help us with goal setting. So if, for example, we'd done our hypoxic test underwater, so we used to do as far underwater as we could without breathing. If for any reason, say at the middle of the season, we'd gone backwards, it would be we'd sit down with the coach and go, right, why has this happened? What do we need to put into the program to improve this? Was it just an off day or something like that? So it would help us monitor day to day, but also over a long period of time as well.
Cool. Right, okay. So that'll lead us into question 2 then. So explain how swimmers take part in assessments to analyse physical capability. So we've talked about testing. We've talked about the different types of testing that you can do. And Becky's also talked about the role of an athlete and what their responsibility is. So what I want you to do, bear in mind it is an explain question. So I'll give you 3 minutes to just sort of make some brief notes and write what you can in, and then we'll move on. So yeah, just have a go at question 2 for us, please. Thank you. And I'll mute my mic. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll move on to the next question now, because we don't want to have you on here all morning. Like we say, it is going to be recorded. So if you're struggling with anything, you can go back over and listen to my dulcet tones even more. So I think we'll pass you over to Matt, isn't it, Matt, now?
Yeah, it's me. Thank you. Morning, everyone. So we're going to move on to the next question. So the question that we're going to be looking at is explain how an athlete can help coaching and other staff to analyse their assessment results to identify their own physical need. So, on this one, what kind of sorry, how on this one we're looking at kind of how an athlete can obviously help that coaching staff. So in theory, we're looking at kind of things such as obviously giving an opinion on how things feel and how things are going. Also as well, what we've got is we've also got Darren, who is a swim coach. So with him having that coaching experience, he can talk about kind of things such as what he looks for from his swimmers when they're looking to go through kind of those assessment results after you've been through a training set or a training cycle, looking to pinpoint certain aspects at the time of the season, because obviously that's a massive important fact. Darren, what kind of things as a coach would you be looking for from the swimmer when they're taking part in these assessments?
You've got to look at it on two angles. Firstly is during testing. So actually when the test is taking place, what sort of information as a coach do I want from the swimmers? I want to know how they feel. I want to know how they think it's going. I understand their headspace as well, because there's a lot of variables involved in testing. So if you're going to have really good quantitative data that you can use, then you need to make sure that you understand the variables that are involved. So when you do a test, for example, if you're doing a pool or a land-based test, it's about making sure the environment is the same each time. So you need to understand, if you're going to do a certain test, that you do that probably on the same day, and that the swimmer themselves has done the same things leading up to that test. So you need to understand from the swimmer what's gone on for that swimmer in that day leading up to that test, because that's quite important that you remove as many variables as possible. So as an athlete's point of view, you need to be able to communicate to your coach effectively about what's happened, how you're feeling, the conditions in which that you find yourself in at that moment. But also during the tests themselves, you need to kind of understand as a coach how your swimmers are feeling. So if you're doing a step test, for example, 7-200s in the pool, if a swimmer is really not up for it, then the test data may not be comparable to previous step tests. And equally, if you're doing physical tests in the gym, you might be with your strength coach or you might be with your swim coach. But again, understanding about what's happened, if you've had any injuries, any illnesses, you need to just understand all the variables. Otherwise, the test data that you're providing may not be as authentic and as useful to both the coach and the athlete as it could be. And making those comparisons between assessments and the results is quite important, as Mick mentioned at the beginning about plotting your season. I mean, Beck, how often did you do your tests, would you say, as a swimmer?
So I apologise if you can hear the bin men behind me. So we did start a season, probably did some kind of like mini test every 3 weeks, something like that. And then we probably do a proper test at the end of each main block of training, or like a main competition. So
your coach would have, or as a coach, I would sit down with the athletes and I would say, here's our current cycle of training. And within this cycle, here is our testing period. And then you'd look at the whole year and you would say, and you plot out, these are your opportunities through a year for testing. So having that relationship with your coach probably enabled you to be better prepared, would you say, Beck?
Yeah, definitely. I think it helped kind of with the timeline as well of what was going to be happening in the season as well. So you kind of knew when your main blocks of training would be, when your main competition blocks would be, when your testing would be. So you could kind of plan it all out and you'd have that ready so that it was kind of like you could prepare yourself better for things. So you were thinking about more of your nutrition, your rest and recovery. So they kind of became more important the closer you got to a big competition, the closer you got to a set of testing.
Yeah. And I think from a coaching point of view, once you've done these tests, you would be, you'd be discussing with your athletes the outcomes in order for them to be doing an evaluation of their goal setting and resetting of short and medium term goals. So the question is asking you how, as an athlete, you can help your coach to analyze the results and identify your individual needs. So you need to be a real central focus of all testing and all analysis, because as a coach, I can obviously give you my view and opinion on how you've done, but as an athlete, you're the one that needs to decide with your coach your progress, if it's suitable for what you were expecting, but also how you can work together to move toward improved testing results in the next period, so that when you enter the next period of testing, that you're best prepared, because the psychological aspect of testing is as important as the physical aspect. Of course, you need to be in good condition to do your testing, but you also need to be in a good mindset for your testing. And a lot of that comes from the coach-athlete relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to add to that as well, I think it's important for kind of athletes to be open and honest, and feel that that environment is a safe environment for the athletes to confide in their coach and kind of give an honest opinion about that, you know, that physical side of it, and just kind of be open and honest and say whether they're struggling or not, and not feel that they've got to abide by some kind of expectation. You know, it's okay to say that you're struggling. So obviously that obviously forms that collaborative approach between the coach and the athlete, and obviously that team bonding, where we both know how important it is, and hopefully you guys have got that really good relationship with your coach, where you feel that you can be open and honest and discuss if there are issues, or if there's anything that you guys can talk about, and discuss these results openly and honestly, and set relevant targets going forwards on the basis of those results. So what we're going to do is just going to give you just a few minutes on that one. Remember, it's an explain question, so you obviously need to make sure that you are putting in that level of detail. Look to break down the question. Obviously, talking about how the athlete can help coaching and other staff to assess those assessment results, and also identifying their own needs. So kind of use it as a bit of a kind of breaking it down for the results, and then building on that with their own physical need.
So we're going to give you 3 minutes for the question, guys. We're also going to give you 5 minutes for a break as well. So it's 9:52 now. So we're going to restart the next question on the hour at 10 o'clock. So a couple of minutes for the question, and we'll give you a few minutes just to go grab a drink, run to the toilet, anything you need to do. And we'll begin again on the hour at 10. Right, guys, hopefully that's given you a bit of time to catch up with any questions that you're a little bit behind on, or just go grab a drink or whatever you needed to do for a few minutes. So we're going to just get back on now into the workbook. So we're looking now at explain why it's important for a swimmer to contribute to discussions and analysis of own physical capability. And we said a little bit already about the importance of engagement and the relationship between athlete and coach. And there's a section to come as well on this, so I won't say too much about the skills that are required. But the reasons why it is important for you to contribute is your program. So as a swimmer, you are in charge of your own destiny to an extent. Obviously, your coach is there to guide you and support you through the process. But as the athlete, you've got the ultimate decision as to the program that you're in and the way that you work. So if you don't give your own personal viewpoint into the physical capability that you have, then your coach can't possibly know the limitation, and the coach can't then plan your training accordingly. So the coach and athlete relationship is really at the heart of success for all the pillars. And you'll notice the questions that we're going through today, you probably recognize them because there've been very similar questions around technical, tactical, and psychological, and the skills and the importance of you contributing to each aspect of your program will be very, very similar to what you've written before. Obviously today we're specifically talking about physical capability, but the principles of why is it important that you engage should be pretty similar across the board, because all of those pillars of coaching add up to the whole program. And as an athlete, you've got to take responsibility, especially as a young adult. You're making decisions now about your long-term future. So a lot of you are thinking about next year, university, swimming, post-18 options. And we've already had a workshop around careers and what you might be doing. You might be thinking about going to a national performance centre. You might be looking at going to an NTC. You might be looking to go to a university that has a swimming program, or a university that doesn't have a swimming program, but there's a swimming club that you can join that's nearby. So starting to now think about how you contribute to things and discussions around your capabilities are going to be really key. As in September, you're going to potentially have new coaches. So potentially you need to go to that new program with all the information about what you can do and your aspirations for not only next season, but the next cycle of training. And obviously with Corona, we've had a disruption to our quadrennial cycle. So for some people that have planned to come to a crescendo this in 2020, they've probably had to reevaluate that. But the trick for you guys is the fact that you're going to also change program in the last year of that potential 4-year cycle. So you've got to think about the information that you need and the importance of you actively contributing to discussions in order for you to continue to achieve the outcomes that you'd planned to achieve to the end of this training cycle. Did you want to add anything, Matt?
Yeah, definitely. And it's in terms of kind of like, for instance, the goal setting process as well. It's important that you are obviously involved in those discussions, because at the end of the day, and especially my guys on the call, they'll know that I've said before, would you agree to a goal that isn't realistic or or achievable? No, you wouldn't. So it's important that you guys have got this kind of buy-in and kind of contribution to kind of this discussions analysis, because it is about you. And obviously as well, it's kind of that learning process, between you and between the coach and the athlete as well. So for instance, you've got to look at kind of that relationship that you build with that coach, to ensure that you know each other's styles. There's a lot of you on here that will have a really close working relationship with your coach that will probably be very singular and individual on a one-to-one basis, because they know how to get the best out of you. So if they know you that well, obviously they can contribute and give you individual goals, but obviously it needs you to contribute to those and come to some sort of agreement.
Should we give a couple of minutes now just for the guys to answer that question? I think we've probably, in the last 2 questions, given a lot of information around the discussions and analysis of physical conditioning. So if we give you 2 or 3 minutes just to get a few thoughts down for, this is 2.4, before we move on to the next question.
Just another minute on that one, guys, and then we're going to move on to the next question. Okay. So hopefully you've had enough time to get those finished. Obviously, again, as we've said before, we are recording it. So if there's any issues or anything that you've missed or feel that you need more information on or need to review any of the information that's been given, obviously we'll send the recording out and you can have access to that. So the next question is 5.5. So we're looking at explain ways in which a physical conditioning program can be continuously developed to meet an individual swimmer's needs. So just off the bat there on the question, it does say ways. So please give more than one. Obviously, you guys have taken part in assessments. Obviously, you've been evaluated before and had open discussions with kind of your coaches. So those are some of the kind of ways that things can be adapted. What we need to do is we're going to change it up a little bit and just use the chat box. So in the chat box, if you can give me any different ways that your physical conditioning program can be changed or developed or adapted, what kind of things do you think could happen to improve your current physical conditioning program? What kind of things can you do to help make it better? So just use the chat box, type in the message, and obviously send it across. Yeah. So on that one, Lauren, how would we go about that? So how would we know if you're at the right intensity or frequency? What kind of things could we put in place? So especially if we're kind of looking at testing. Yeah, Tim. Yeah. So obviously talking to your coach, and remember we were saying earlier about that being open and honest, giving your feelings on things, so that you can obviously make adaptations if needs be. Anybody else? No, just the two. Okay. So on this one, we're looking at kind of things such as, obviously, as I said before, briefly. Yeah. So again, how would we go about that, Luis? What kind of things will we do to change that program? So as I mentioned briefly before we started this, we're looking at assessments. So whether that be strength, testing strength, maybe it's testing kind of vertical jumps and things like that. So kind of think about the different tests. Give me some examples of the different tests that you've done or assessments that you've done within your program, whether it be from a kind of an elite level, whether it be kind of your club program. What kind of tests do you do? One rep max, yeah, Jack. Yep.
I think it's probably worth saying, if people are struggling a little bit here, thinking of it as a land-based, put it into context for pool testing as well. So the question is asking you, how can you continuously develop a program to meet your needs? So if you're doing a step test, or you're doing a best average set, or you're doing a set where you're targeting a particular energy system, if you don't meet a rep, if you don't meet a requirement of a set, what might you do in order to adjust for the next attempt at the test set?
Yeah, definitely. You get a good example, Rhiannon? Like I say, this doesn't, like as Darren said, it doesn't have to be kind of gym-based stuff. It can be kind of things such as obviously doing your pool work, and then obviously then taking that forward into possibly a physical conditioning program. So for instance, if you're looking at strength within the pool, obviously you can then take that outside and go into that physical conditioning program within the gym. Okay, so how do we put this into practice? So obviously we take part within these physical tests. Yeah, so everyone's different, Tim. Yeah, a lot of different people who use different things, and kind of, it's quite in-house sometimes what people do. So once we've got these kind of these stats, what we look to do then is we look to incorporate that within the program. So obviously, once we've got a program, we need to assess to make sure that it's still relevant, because at the end of the day, last thing we want to do is we don't want a program that is not going to be relevant to what we're actually doing. Or in fact, if it's not working for you, it could do more harm than good. So obviously, again, we're looking at kind of things such as setting those SMART targets to make sure that obviously, we're still achieving. Once we've achieved those SMART targets, we can then look to adapt it. This again can be done off kind of your cycles. So again, if you're training towards a certain event, or once that event's done, how do we move on to the next one? Do things need to change? If we go from short to long course, or similar kind of things like that. So again, obviously as well, we're looking to make those adaptations depending on what kind of season, what time of season it is, and things like that. So look to kind of use different ways of the program can be developed. So like obviously, like we've said the assessments, taking part within those assessments, making sure that it's still relevant where we need to be, doesn't need to be changed. The evaluations. So like for instance, when you do sit down with your coach and go through these SMART goals, have you hit these SMART goals? Can they be adapted? If you've not hit them, what needs to be changed? What can be done to make it more achievable? And then obviously the open discussions that you have with your coaching to discuss how they feel and things like that. Obviously these different things can be happening at different times. So obviously the open discussion stuff can always happen whenever needed. You may have set dates for kind of reevaluation or those assessments, whether it be at the start of the season, middle, and then obviously as well the evaluation. So again, after you've completed these assessments, you have this conversation, look to kind of build together, and use that working relationship that we spoke about previously, about working together and bringing up that next kind of goal and what's going to be done to achieve the next point. So again, remember it's an explain. Remember it needs more than one way. So look to build on this. Obviously, again, like I said before, it is getting recorded. So if there's anything that you've missed, or if you've only got one example, obviously you can go through the recording again and listen again and see if there's anything else that you can pick up. So what we're going to do is,
add to that,
sorry,
Matt,
Darren.
before you give him a minute, is the best answers to this question are going to include genuinely real examples of where you have had a tricky test, maybe not hit the outcomes that you were looking for, and what you have done next, which is the key thing. It's what you do next. It's, the test is disappointing in that moment, but what do you do now in order to improve? And what have you as a swimmer, what have you gone away and done? What additional work have you done? How have you changed your approach to training before retesting? So, and you're going to have examples. If you're doing some ultra short race pace stuff and you've not hit your rep and you've been kicked out the set, then what have you then done in order to make sure that next time you've done that set, that you haven't missed your rep early in the set, and you've actually pushed on deeper into the set? And as I said earlier, was that a mindset issue? Was that you didn't believe you were good enough, or was it that you physically needed to do some additional aerobic or anaerobic conditioning in order to meet the requirement of the test? So I think the best answers to this question, and probably all of these questions, will include those real world examples where you've come up against a little bit of adversity and you've had to make those changes in order to improve.
Just adding on that, Darren, like you're saying, in terms of like testing and stuff like that, there's never really like a failed test, if that makes sense. It's always just giving you a score to improve on.
Yeah.
It's giving you that opportunity, right? Well, that's what I got. What do I need to do now? It's not like tests aren't like pass or fail. There's the information. Do you know what I mean? The information that you use as an athlete, like he's saying there, and what you do with it then. That's what it's about. You could get the best score ever, but if you don't do anything with it, then it's pointless. Do you know what I mean? So how you take that information and you use it. Sorry for what then.
So what we're going to do is going to give you a few minutes on that one. And then what we'll do is we'll move on to the next question. So give you till 22 minutes past. So 4 minutes. Just another minute on that, guys. Just make sure you can do what you can. Again, like I say, we'll send the recording out afterwards.
Thanks, Darren. Okay, guys, so we're going to move on to what is the last section in your workbook. So this is kind of based around athlete behaviours, coachable behaviours, and sort of like effective training. There are 4 questions for you to answer in your workbook, but we're going to kind of try and do it in like a comprehension type task. So off the back of this, you should be able to kind of take on all the information that you need to answer those 4 questions. In your workbook, you're looking at questions 5.1 to 5.4. Kind of, we won't particularly reference those questions too much because we want you to try and do the work yourselves. But going to give you as much information as we can, which hopefully help you answer those questions. So in total, there are 10 key coachable behaviours, and we will talk through all of them for you in this section. Based around competencies you have, so like the knowledge and the skills that you have, essentially equals your behaviour. So your key coachable behaviour is influenced by what you know and what you're able to do, and also your competency to do it. So here we're talking about behaviours, beliefs and values across all 4 disciplines, so through the water polo, diving, synchro and swimming. So it will apply to both you guys as swimmers and the other athletes on the programme. Thinking about kind of like the 10 coachable behaviours are broken down into 3 sections. First section is your person or yourself. So this is your philosophies and values, progressive behaviours, and the way you collaboratively work with others. Going to look at a row at a time. So we're going to kind of start with the top one, which is philosophy and values. I'm going to talk about the knowledge, skills and behaviours, and we'll follow it down for each row. So by the end of this, it will give you all the information you need to answer the questions. If at any point you're struggling, obviously we are sending the recording out so you can refer back to that. So for your philosophy and values, these are things you live by, what you believe in and your motivations. The way you go about your business, so day to day, and the way you behave, and also the way that you act. Hopefully it will lead towards a consistent behaviour, which in sport is based around integrity, and you want people to look at you in a really positive way, and you want people to take you seriously. Obviously this is a great aspect for a elite athlete such as yourselves. So looking at your behaviour and matching this to what you believe. Thank you, Darren. The second coachable behaviour for yourself is your ability to be progressive. So within this, we're looking at the way you analyse yourself. So we often call it SWOT analysis when we talk about these things. We're looking into the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Also include your learning styles and preferences. So are you auditory, kinesthetic, visual, all those things come in here. It's looking at opportunities for you to progress and your personal development. So thinking about what you need to do to continually improve. And that could be in training or competition or any aspect of your sport, in the same way as it applies to kind of like your outside life as well. Hopefully at the end of that, it gives you a high standard of behaviour which allows you to meet challenges head on. So this allows you to be more adaptable and more progressive in the way you go about making changes when you've had either particular successes, so things that you're really proud of, or things that you feel like you've done really well and you want to continue to move on with, or if you've had failures where or kind of times where you found it more difficult, and you need to adapt what you're doing in order to make it into something that you can improve on in the future. And then the final key coaching behaviour is the collaborative approach. So who have you got in your corner basically? Who do you work with? Who is within your support network? And how and when do you need or use these people? So identifying when you are capable and able to deal with something yourself, or when you might need the support of others. So those people we've talked about throughout the programme. So it can be people like your coach, whether that's your coach who helps you in the pool, or whether you've got like an SSC coach. Also someone like a psychologist, might be a dietitian or nutritionist, your friends, your family. It might be your teachers at school or at college, and also your DICE assessors. So thinking about who you've got and when you might need them, and drawing on your own experiences to help others is a really good behaviour which demonstrates you've got a collaborative approach, because this is often about helping yourself but also helping others. So this covers the first 3 coachable behaviours, which are based around yourself and these things we would expect to see, and you would demonstrate to people such as your DICE assessor, your coach and the other people in your support network. So shows us that you are looking to train effectively but develop a relationship with people around you, so you are considered as a coachable athlete. Now pass over to Darren, who will take you through the next set of key coachable behaviours relating to the way you interact with others.
Okay, so the next 3 coachable behaviours are based around communication, relationships and inspiration. So as Becky said, we've got the mix of these 10 things that make us, if you like, the perfect athlete. And the heart of everything we do, for me as a coach, but also somebody who was an athlete, is the ability to communicate. And communication is two-way, so the ability to draw information and listen, but also question and demonstrate through physical doing of something. That is all communication. And when we think about feedback, which is one of the questions that this directly relates to, you need to think about the types of communication, but you also need to think about the sorts of information that you are providing and when you're giving it. So it's as much about the soft skills that you need, but also the ability to know what you're giving as well. And you need to have a little bit of an understanding of what other people need. So thinking about when you communicate with your coach or other peers or people in your support network, making sure that you understand how they can best process the information as well. So if you don't have that ability to interact and communicate effectively with people, then there's a good chance that you're not going to achieve the outcomes that you're looking for. And also, it's not going to do much for helping to build relationships, which is the next key coachable behavior. The ability to build a rapport, create a connection, and develop an understanding between you and all those around you. And that ability to build relationships is something that, as young athletes, you're quite fortunate that you have exposure to lots of people of different ages and experiences that maybe somebody that's not involved in sport doesn't have. And the fact that you have that at such an early age, from sort of the age of 8, 9, 10 perhaps, it helps you to build relationships and understand how to build relationships and identify opportunities to do so as a young adult. And that's another soft skill that swimming has given you, that you can then apply to your wider lifestyle. And this, the behaviors that you'll then be able to demonstrate effectively around sort of respect and empathy and the ability to empower others is key skills that are life skills that you'll then take through into other aspects of education or of life. And you're going to be working with a lot of people that you will inspire and you will be inspired by. And social media now means that you're able to influence and demonstrate what you're about quite quickly. Obviously, back in our day, it was all behavioural and what you did around the pool and around other people. But we now have to consider that in the modern athlete is now able to influence and motivate and inspire other people in different ways. And in the pool is one way, performing at a competition is another way, and your behaviour in training, but your behaviour on social media is another thing to consider. And you want to create positivity because, there are young people around you that are looking to you now as an elite athlete and aspiring to be like you. But don't forget, you also went through that process of being inspired by other people, and you want to try and encourage others to stay motivated and achieve their goals in the same way that somebody would have probably done that for you. So that's my 3 key coachable behaviours based around perhaps you and other people, linking into what Becky said. And Paula now is just going to cover the last 4, which look at training.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, so just leading on from what Darren was saying there about behaviours. So obviously, as an athlete, it refers to everything that you do on a daily basis. So, your body language, what you say, and obviously your sporting skills that you display. So the section that I'm looking at obviously is training and the appropriate behaviour for elite athletes in training and competitions. So one of the key things that we look at is planning. So why do we need to plan? Why do you need to know about the planning? Surely you just rock up at your training session and your coach writes your session on the board. Well, what do you need to know about it? Well, at the beginning of the season, you are involved in that planning process. You need to understand you have to have your own training programs. So it's important that you sit down with your coach and discuss what your goals are going to be for the rest of that season. We've gone all the way through the DICE program. You're probably sick of it by now, but actually we, you know, continually revisiting those SMART targets. Okay, and those SMART targets form the basis of that planning. It's really important. Okay, and the skill in the planning, you know, what type of session is it going to be? And then, you know, how you actually conduct yourself, as I've said before, in your actual training session. You know, Darren mentioned about being a role model. You know, people look up to you. You've got to obviously train well, have the aptitude in that particular session. So obviously that's looking at the planning stage. Then doing. Okay, so this is the actual physical training. Okay, so it may be that you've agreed. So you've reviewed your last season's goals, and you've decided this day you probably need to tweak your stroke or your technique, or refine this, refine that. So again, this is actually now applying it in the pool, and you obviously need to know the knowledge to how to kind of define that specific skill or that development. And also making sure that within your training session that you are focused and you are engaged and you don't become easily distracted. Okay, excellent. So review, again, we've spoken about reviews going on, evaluating your performance. You know, we've spoken a lot about testing, and as Mick said earlier on, you know, testing acts as a benchmark. So it's not a pass or a fail. It's a benchmark for you to improve your performance. So you need that knowledge and to analyze that information to know if you're getting better or not. Okay, and then the skills. What can you do to improve yourself there? And again, the behavior is showing that we have, you know, that constructive feedback with both coaches, peers, support staff. As Becky said, it's really important that we work collaboratively with others. And then the final one is technical. So you need to, and again, we've done technical workshops. If you remember way back in the beginning that we, in the induction, we looked at obviously looking at analysing your strokes and things. And it's really important that you understand that. So things like, you know, understanding your splits and understanding your stroke counts and constantly discussing those, you know, in training and after races, it's really important to do that. And then it's just like executing that in a session. So you've got all of those things, and just making sure that you've worked on those in your training sessions, and then display that in the competitions. Okay, and then just to kind of like sum this up, it's really important that you're fully integrated into your program, and you are displaying these behaviours. Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. So hopefully that little task there is going to help you guys answer the final 4 questions in your workbook, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4. And the idea really is that you'll have the opportunity now to adapt and use this information in order to understand about the ability and the importance of giving and receiving feedback, and also why you are committing yourself to that program, and the importance of you being objective with your coach. So we've not given you the direct answers there. We've tried to give you behaviors which are going to help you answer those 4 questions. So slightly different approach to this last section in your workbook. And you will have an opportunity to listen back to the recording. I'll also send out the slides, and we'll send out this particular table, which I'm just putting up on the screen now. It looks quite busy as a whole thing, but we'll send that out as a PDF as well. So if you want to just have a quick glance at that in order to get the information down, the recording and the slides and the handouts they'll be coming out to you around lunchtime today. The recording will be a link or a download, and obviously the handouts will just come straight from Rachel. So Rachel Weston will send all that information to you by the end of today, just so that you guys can, whilst you're in the mindset of doing this workshop, you can finish that off today rather than having to come back to it. So just give us an hour or so, and we'll get that to you around lunchtime today. That'll help you then complete all the questions that we've talked through today. Before we sort of wrap up, do any of the athletes have any questions they wanted to ask us about the workshop itself, the workbook, any specific questions? If anyone wants just pop in, I'll just give you a minute to type a couple of questions in the chat box if you've got any specific questions about what we've gone through today, or any specific questions. Has to be the quietest chat box I think we've ever had on a session. Well, look, the assessors will all be hanging around at the end here for a few minutes. So if you want to stay on and ask a question, if you know, we can open up your mic and have a chat, or you can put it in the chat box. That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming along today. You know, we are moving toward the end of the DICE program for you guys. This is the last workshop. I've had a couple of reviews this week with some of you guys just to talk about the next steps for completion. You know, everybody in this room is working towards your completion by the end of July. You know, we do need to be thinking about getting the workbooks finished off. We need to think about then physically getting hold of the workbooks. So the assessors will be arranging contact-free couriers to collect your work from your houses. So over the next couple of weeks, I'd really urge any athletes that haven't had a recent conversation with their assessor just to get in contact, just give us an update. I know that I've got pretty much reviews booked with everybody in the next couple of weeks. So come and have a chat to us. Let us know how you're getting on. We can review with you where you're up to in terms of progress. We really appreciate this is a difficult time. A-levels would have started this week had COVID and Corona not interrupted life. So we understand you're in a difficult moment and might be feeling not so good about that situation, but something positive. You know, we can work toward getting this DICE program brought to a conclusion swiftly for you, so that you can sit back and enjoy your summer break, get back into training, and really look forward to next season. So thanks from me for coming on today. I really appreciate it. I don't know if any of the other guys want to add anything.
Yeah, no, just echo what Darren said, really. Just thanks very much. And obviously, you know, we're all around. Like, don't feel like you're struggling if you think you're missing a workbook, or you think you're behind, or you're not too sure on it. Just get in touch with us. We're all stuck at home as well, you know. So just drop us an email and let us know what it is you need, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can and help you out with whatever you need. Just don't leave it too late, is what I'll say. If you are struggling with anything now, get in touch with us now. Like Darren says, we'll all stay on it, yeah. If not, just drop us an email and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, just echoing that. Sooner you kind of message us, or if you've got any issues, just let us know. The sooner we can deal with it, or sooner we can help you with it. And again, just thanks, guys, everyone, for coming on, and hope it's been all right for your last workshop.